Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is a Thursday afternoon, May 21st, 2026, and this is your somewhat savvy, politically that is, host, Abby Kaufman, and we are here today. While we've got a lot to chat about in general, as you can imagine, I always talk about this politician that I respect, and her name is Ada Briseno, and Ada is running for the state assembly from District 67. And Ada is an American success story. She came here as a refugee with her parents, found a job at a hotel, uh, organized the workers into a union, later was voted president of the union, head of the Democratic Party of Orange County. I mean, Ada has climbed mountains, and I respect the living daylights out of that. I have no idea how anybody can, find fault with someone like that, but they do. And to make the point of what we as a whole are up against, I can't upload this video, but I can play the audio for you, and it goes like this. If I can click it. Oh, guys. So, guys, I hope you kind of took that to heart, because this is such a and I can't I hate saying unprecedented, but in addition to that, this is such a difficult time. America's essentially in a nosedive, and you've got someone pushing the wheel forward instead of pulling it upward to get us out of the nosedive. There's literally a dumpster fire in every nation, or in every continent except Australia. We don't have friends. We used to be able to, if we need a little help, we'd ask Canada, Mexico, England, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey. Let's go to Greenland, Finland, Denmark, Norway. We could ask anybody in the world for a favor, because they knew we were the good guys. But what happens when a bad guy lies, cheats, and steals his way into office? That's a real blow to the republic, and to the country, and to the world. I mean, America was all about global leadership and democracy and doing the right thing, even though we do have our hypocrisies, and we're clearly not perfect as a country, but we always at least try to do the right thing. And what you see now is someone who's doing the right thing for himself. Think about that. Doing all the right things for himself. And you know what you get? It's not that you get nothing, you get stuff taken away. You get the big three: healthcare, the SNAP, food stamp benefits, and Section 8 housing. I mean, these were safety nets, and they're called safety nets for a reason. And while traditionally Reagan Republicans had no problem, slashing or getting rid of those social safety nets, and I've always kind of wondered about that, because the same people that do that are the same people that sit in the front row of the church. And I'm not a religious scholar or anything, but if I had to share what little bit I remember about Jesus Christ, I kind of think he's like considered the Lord and Savior to like 1.4 billion people. So he's got, got a little following. But I always thought he was the guy that like washed the leper's feet. And so he had this crazy notion about feeding the hungry and clothing the naked, and sheltering those without shelter. Now you see that those notions strike me as being the same as our safety net. and who makes the safety net stronger and who makes the safety net weaker. And when you make the safety net weaker, it rarely helps because it just drives people's desperation even deeper and even harder. Sometimes the best you can do, and while we're on healthcare for just a second, everybody is big on denying healthcare to immigrants, and I'm going to tell you, sometimes I think those are the first guys that ought to get healthcare. And the reason I say that is the last thing I think any country needs or wants is a permanent underclass of people without medical care that may work in restaurants or in other close quarters where things are communicable. So, I just don't, so much of this stuff I don't get. And only because I don't get it would I ask you to give us a call at 949 949 629 3820 and let us know what you think about all this. You've got to admit it's the damnedest thing. They just, how they get away with this, I'll never know. The blatant hypocrisy. But now, you used to be able to be tucked away in a little rural part of Idaho or Montana or even California, Nevada, anywhere out west, really, and kind of be off the grid and not pay attention to what's going on in the world. And, I'll give those guys a pass. I'm not really crazy about doing it, but, it's kind of understandable. If you can't tune in, you can't tune in. But there cannot be a soul alive that has not heard about the corruption in the White House. And not only is it corruption in the White House, it's like out in the open. It's reality TV is what it is. If you had to have a show about a crooked White House with an incompetent staff, sometimes I don't think you have to look very far. If you agree with me, let me know, 949-629-3820. And, if you like, check us out at our website, democracyradionetwork.com. And that's where our live stream link is. And another thing, you might just happen to see the PayPal donate button. And I'm not going to ask you to hit it. I'm not going to ask you to smash it. I'm not going to ask you to tap it or click it or whatever it is. What I'm going to ask you to do is smash the living daylights out of the thing and send a nice little donation so Ab can get some car work done. How about that? So let's kind of get back to this, to what's going on in the White House, because it's crippling. It's just crippling. And one of the New York Times editorials, actually the main New York Times editorial, this is big time. And I will quote, "There has never been presidential corruption like this." And then, like I said, and then they kind of got a line in about the 1.8 billion. Oh, what else? I'll talk about the $1.8 billion, fund, anti-weaponization fund. Has anybody gotten like a really nice bonus at Christmas time at the end of the year? The firm or the company did really well and they give everybody nice bonus. Yeah, didn't happen to me either. But I know people that, will get, $10,000 bonuses or whatever at the end of the year. And, sometimes a lot more. So that's like the most you could hope for is that. But now you have a $1.8 billion precedent. Now, how is that for a, and that's not even the end of the year windfall. This is like, we're not even in the summer yet. So there's just, guys, you have to take this seriously. We're beyond casually watching anymore. I clearly think it's time to, if you haven't joined your local Democratic club, join at least one. If you can, I know it's easy to advocate volunteering and hard to find the time. But just joining the local Democratic club Uh, Hopefully, it's not too expensive. They should be more like $20 a year. If they're more than that, you might even want to use PayPal, paying for. I mean, do anything you have to do to be a participant, because this is one of those times where if we don't step up collectively, we all step down collectively. I guess that Ben Franklin thing. If we don't all hang together, we hang separately. Well, if there was ever a time for a united Democratic Party, and I don't expect the country to unite at this point, I actually think we're post unity, and things have just been so fractured that I just think it's going to take a while for the fractures to heal. I would love nothing better than to be wrong, but that's the way it looks. And don't forget, I'm out here in California. I don't have a true sense of what's going on in Michigan or Wisconsin or Idaho or a lot of the country. I've got some idea what's going on the coasts, but it's the interior of the country that tends to vote for Republicans, and to have voted for this one this time is completely inexcusable. I mean, like I always say, wasn't January 6th enough? Apparently it wasn't. Some people won't give them a pass on that. And which again, that leads me right back to the fund. So I love the anti-weaponization fund, and we all know what kind of fund it is. But what happens is when he gets this fund and pays out to these people, he's rewarding the loyalist, the people feel willing to do anything for him, to break the law for him, to commit violence on behalf of him. And these are the people that are getting money from the anti-weaponization fund. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to see the hypocrisy here. And it's not like they make an effort to hide it. Sure, Blanche goes on, Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, goes on TV and, gives a pretty slick lawyerly defense. But at the end of the day, there's some questions you just, that just, if you answer, it's going to be bad. And you can't expect them to answer those sorts of things directly, especially when, there was an old saying in the, I think it was the hippies, that you don't need a weatherman to tell which way the wind's blowing. Well, the wind's pretty stinky right now. The breeze is coming like right from the swamp. And I hadn't been around too many really good smelling swamps. Keep in mind, the guy promised to drain it the first time and you bought it again. And, like I said, I've got an old friend who's like 85 and I'm convinced he just does this out of habit. But, when you ask him, it depends on the question you ask. If you ask, wasn't January 6th enough, he will agree with you. But then if you go ahead and follow that up with, well, why did you vote for him? Well, I thought he'd be better for the economy. And I'm like, well, which one of the 6 or 7 bankruptcies led you to that conclusion? Was it some of these successful business ventures? Was it Trump Steaks, Trump Airline, Trump University, Trump Water, Trump watches, Trump phones? You see where I'm going with this? Oh, I didn't forget the Trump electric guitar that came from China in the shape of a Gibson Les Paul. I mean, I don't even want to get started about the $500 phones that don't work. But think about that. He's destroying the pillars that we stood for. We used to stand for an independent justice system. We used to stand for a Congress that actually legislated and advocated for its constituents. Think about that. There's a reason Congress is in Article 1 of the Constitution, and that's because the founders thought the most important thing to do was to vest power in as many people as possible, which is just the opposite of centralizing power in one person. And you see the conflict, don't you? Trump wants power concentrated in one person, and the founders of the Constitution did not want that. But of course, does Trump follow the law? No.
He's always been a make me or you can't make me or, whatever it is. Recalcitrant, obstinate, whatever it is. Uh, at the end of the day, you can't find two people that have anything nice to say about the guy, which, it's kind of game, set, and match, if you know what I mean. Uh, it's just a really tough spot. And, what comes after? Let's say Trump has a heart attack and from the cheeseburgers and drops dead. And just to make sure he's dead, he cracks his head open. Okay, so he's dead and gone. And now you got JD Vance stepping up to the plate. And when that happens, you know, you have the pro-Trump people and the anti-Vance people. But the one thing I think you can rest assured of is in that situation, should Trump be incapacitated, however you define that, and Vance succeeds him to the presidency, who does he get to name as vice president? My strong hunch is Donald Trump Jr. Now, how about that? We're not into dynasties in this country. And these guys just want to take the power, the raw power. I mean, they kind of a crude word. They emasculate the citizens daily, and at the same time, they make another 10 million, 100 million, whatever it is. The numbers are just astronomical at this point. I would talk about $1.8 billion like it's chicken feed. $1 million is probably life changing for a lot of people, and this is over 1,000 times that. And while we're kind of talking about money and stuff like that, I'm sure everyone's kind of noticed how we've flown NASA out to our space program out to Elon Musk and SpaceX. And, the reason that happened, at least I think, is that traditionally rocket launches and space exploration took so much money that it could only be done through the government. But lo and behold, in whatever year it was, Elon Musk comes along and he works with PayPal and goes on to do Tesla and SpaceX, whatever it is. So the guy turns out to be the wealthiest person on the face of the earth, far beyond the Amazon guy, Bezos, and whoever it is. So all of a sudden, over the space of a couple of years, you have someone who is financially capable of putting together a company to privatize space flight and space exploration, maybe even space colonization. Who knows? But the truth of the matter is, you would have to think that NASA doesn't have the vision, the cash, or the combination that Elon Musk has. Think about it. We have people now that are worth more than entire countries' governments. Their GDP is peanuts compared to what these guys have. And of course, one of the sad consolations in life is the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But when they take a fall, they may just take a lot of people down with them. And by the way, I think we've seen that tendency kind of advocated from the top down. And that's another sometimes unmentioned tragedy of all this. Is look at what the kids are seeing, much less what they're saying. They're bombarded. They can't get away from it either, especially when when you get into a good school, maybe parents have a little money put one side, they send you to private school, and the drive to excel just takes over, and you become consumed with news and grades and school and just everything. But we have a president who's only consumed with making money and following the philosophy, all for me and bupkis for you. And you know how much I love saying that? All for me and bupkis for you. And if you want to use the word skadukas, that's kind of interchangeable for bupkis. It's conceptually the same thing. And at the end of the week, you don't want Skidookus or Bupkis. Trust me. So yeah, the examples being set are just pathetic. Um, they're completely distorted, and the guy won't. I have the delusional dumbass problem with people. I every now and then I run into somebody from my old gym, and they're usually older Republicans, and one of them will say, "Geez, you come around to believing that the election was stolen yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, you still believe that?" He says, "Without a doubt." And I says, "Well, you guys had like 60 chances to present evidence, not just prove the case, but 60 opportunities to present evidence, and nobody did it. There's no evidence." So I would say you're being delusional if you insist that that is the case. And then he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, and furthermore, not only are you delusional, but you're a dumbass. This thing has been proven 60 times and you still don't believe it. How much is it going to take? Don't you think it's kind of not accepting the fact that the earth is round and insisting that it's flat?" And at that point, they usually get a little testy and kind of walk away. And in all fairness, I need to back away. I don't want to make anybody have a stroke or anything. Um, but there's a reason it's called the big lie. And and like I said, the anti-weaponization fund just puts January 6th right square in focus. And if you can, and if you haven't, look at a few of the videos. You don't have to sit through the entire committee hearings like I did. But if you do, what you'll see is an objective laying out of what happened, the facts of the case. And I think it's, in my opinion, when you have people breaking into Congress, when you have people, I don't know, pooping on in Nancy Pelosi's desk, somehow it just doesn't strike me as a Capitol tour visit. And I think that all those cops trying to maintain order, they usually they're usually not there unless something's going wrong. And this blatant attempt at rewriting history is something that tyrants do. They want no recollection of anything other than their being in power, and that way used to them being in power. So guys, where does this end? I mean, I can tell you where it starts, and it's already started. We've got our primaries June the 2nd and in November 3rd. So things are hot and heavy out here. I mean, I get calls from politicians all the day asking them to come on, and some I feel would be a better fit than others. But these guys are already in motion, and my best recollection is for the last 2 months, I've been going to the Democratic Club meetings locally, and they're in action already. It might have been started actually with the No Kings in March, but I promise you, people are taking it seriously out here. I can only hope that the young people realize that if there's any group that's more likely to help them than others, it's the Democrats. And guys, the truth is, we need you. Our country's being stolen blind. We need you. Old guys like me, if we got 10 years left, that'd be great. And God only knows what kind of shape we'll be in for those last 10 years. So we need young people in lots of ways. And, I read this morning about about Meta cutting about actually, I think the headline was something like AI casualties. And on this was talking about how Meta laid off 8,000 people. And I think they were in the AI department. uh, it 8,000 person layoffs tend to ripple through, and they hadn't been the only ones. And the worst part is, right now people are overshooting everything on AI. Otherwise, the market wouldn't be where it is. I mean, it's all AI speculation money. If you look realistically, it shouldn't be that way. But there's a famous old investor saying, and that is, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay liquid. And this is, I feel, one of those times where the market's just completely irrational, but you can't really bet against it. Not right now. I mean, especially when the economy is driven by not one lunatic but a couple. We got some work to do. We've got to get some of these institutional people back that have the knowledge of the department and their section. We had a really competent bureaucracy. I honestly, in just about every interaction I've had on any sort of government level, city, state, county, federal, everybody's just been incredibly responsive. I don't think I never really thought the bureaucracy was bloated. I mean, there might have been, 5% or so excess hires of people that hung on, but as a general proposition, these guys just want to do a good job and get a paycheck and go home. I've never found the real entitled government employee stereotype to be true, but you know where it comes from. Why the Republicans have this hatred of all things related to, well, maybe I do know, but why they have this hatred to all things knowledge and educational. Global warming, climate change is a hoax? I don't think so. But again, you have to appreciate the evidence to support the conclusion. And you can say a lot of things about Trump, but you can't say he analyzes to see if the facts support the conclusion. And that's such a crucial point, because when people are faced with decisions, there's usually two ways to go. I'll give you the extreme ranges. On one side, you've got the emotionally made decision, entirely with your heart. Might even be just spur of the moment. Whatever it is, it's done without thinking. Okay, you just do it because it makes you feel good. Now, the other side of that is the evidence-based conclusion. Well, after looking at the evidence, I can conclude that this happened. And you know what you call that? I thank you. You call that credibility. And it comes from the Latin credibilis or something like that. And it meant worthy of being believed. And now you can imagine why being credible and having credibility is so important, because it is worthy of being believed. Now let's take some of this other stuff that you might not want to believe. You might not want to believe that we totally obliterated Iran's nuclear capability months ago. You might not want to believe that, right? And why? Because there's evidence to support the conclusion that did not happen. That the capacity still exists in some form, and regardless, any existence, beats obliteration. And when you have some, I guess you would call it an error in diction when you use the wrong word. But English is one of those funny languages. We're such a conglomeration of world speak. It ain't funny. Oh God, I'm sorry to ramble on, but I swear that that whole $1.8 billion just. But I'm going to tell you something. You know what hurts worse than the $1.8 billion? And if he gets it, this still hurts worse than $1.8 billion. Is the shooting at the mosque in San Diego. what, 5 people killed, 3 at the mosque, and the 2 kids, 17 and 19. And I'm gonna tell you something. I was on a little spiritual journey for a while. I went to the local mosque to see what it was like. I went to the Buddhist temple. I went to the Sikh Gurdwara, and I'd go pretty much any place that would have me just to see. And I'll be the first one to tell you that things seem a little strict around the mosque, but I never got the feeling of any malice or any hatred. I just didn't. And when I wanted to go to the mosque, I made it a point to ask the imam, and Imam Al Qazwini is his name, and an educated man, and I believe deep down a man of peace. And to see the entire Islamic world vilified, and to have 2 kids just in people's lives, is just insane to me. Especially, and I can't say this enough. America was founded for religious freedom from religious persecution. Look it up. Ask Claude from Anthropic, or Jim from Gemini, or ask with Chat from Chat GPT, however they do it. And I think you'll see that I'm right. America was founded on freedom of religion. And guys, that doesn't mean just the Christian religion. That means just about everyone you can think of. Sikhism, Islam. I forgot what the Buddhists call it, but you get the idea, right? But so anyway, while the mosque was a little strict, like I said, there's no hatred, and I just got the impression everybody was there to worship. And I'm gonna tell you something, those guys had like 300 people on Friday afternoon at like 1:00 or something. So if you're a devoted mosque member, you are there. You could probably be there 3 times a day. And lots of religions are like that. My favorite place, and the place I felt most at home, and that I thought had the most ethical and moral members, was the Sikhs. I didn't know much about them. I found out how Sikhism came to be, and that Sikhism has what they call gurus instead of like Jesus. And a guru is not what you and I in the West think it is. We think of a guru as being some mystic, know-it-all kind of guy. But in Sikhism, a guru just means a revered figure. And there's a similar concept in Buddhism, and people have this concept about the I can't say idols, but some of the I don't know what you call it. Anyway, the little carvings or what that you see at the Buddhist temple, and they don't represent bowing to a human in any way. It just means you're paying respect to a revered figure. And in Sikhism, some of the gurus, there's 10 gurus, and I think some of the ones were, one's guru was a poet and a scientist. One guru was he developed the Punjab language. Another Sikh was brilliant in battle, and they just revere these people, not as a mystical creatures. They revere these people because they made contributions to the people that mattered. And how cool is that for a concept? You credit to the guy that developed the language that made it possible for you to communicate. That seems really cool to me. But back to the San Diego mosque shooting. How and why? Hatred is usually taught, and it might be self-taught, like when you are radicalized online. it might be, taught if you go to, some weird church or something, some weird institution with a friend. Uh, there's no shortage of crackpots with crackpot ideas. And likewise, there's no shortage of people feeling aggrieved who will take advantage of that opportunity to hurt whoever they perceive as hurting them or the country. And, for the life of me, I cannot understand how having different people hurts America. I said we were the only country that welcomes that's based on immigration. I mean, but for we wouldn't be here. So the only thing I can ascribe it to is what I call the gangplank theory. Well, we've been here for a generation or two, so I've got mine. I'm pulling up the gangplank, and keep in mind this might have been a white person from wherever it is. It might have been a black person, but usually people are fairly sensitive to moving to another country, and people generally want to make you welcome, and you can't throw up these sorts of walls to kind of divide citizens for your own benefit. And you would have to believe that if Trump knows anything, it's divide and conquer. You know what? He knows divide and conquer, and he knows lie like a rug or lie like a dog, or whatever he wants to lie like. Those things he pretty much knows. Oh, and I'm sure you have been completely oblivious to the stock trading, have you? I mean, this guy would keep a broker busy. He might even keep a brokerage house busy. He trades so much. If he just invested $50 million in the stock market, what's he already got in there? And these guys don't keep $1 billion in their Wells Fargo checking account, right? They might keep, I don't know, 100,000 in cash and a couple 100,000 in bonds for instant liquidity, and then they might then they'll put some money in the stock market. But 50 million, and it's not like, again, he doesn't hide it. The trades go down right before the speech or right before he meets with the CEO. The exact problem is that Trump thinks he's a genius and that everybody else is stupid, and that we don't care, won't catch up with him, or won't understand what he's doing. Well, guess what, Don? The game is up, or the jig is up. The game is over. Whatever other sports deal you want to think of, we know you. The Democrats have always known you, but the good news is some of your own people are getting to know you. And when you lie to people, that's not the way to get them to support you. Now, I know that Trump's central or standard operating procedure is that he has power through fear, but 79-year-old men that are failing mentally usually don't, usually aren't in a position to argue sanity. Between the cheeseburgers and the God knows what, those arteries are just about clogged completely. I mean, how anybody must pass through, God only knows. I don't know if there's a way to prevent that. And let's assume Trump had a stroke. Would he be any more insane? Like, how would we know? Short of a stroke, falling and splitting his head open, we'll never know. He could outlive us all. How about that for a shock? So anyway, give us a call, 949-629-3820. We've got the old line open to chat with whoever might have a little opinion or have a political candidate they want to talk up a little bit. I'll again take this opportunity to mention some locals. Oh, and you know what else? I'll also want to mention a new candidate we endorse, and her name is Susanna Brown. And Susanna is running from District 30, which is the Central Coast, around Cambria and all that. And she was kind enough to come on and chat. And she was just inspiring. Her background is so data intensive that not only can she analyze, uh, you know, a problem, according to the data, but she can suggest a solution based on data. I mean, where has she been? That's exactly what we need. How about this? She's a mom, a couple of kids, and you know, a, a history of being a family history of being Cambria. And again, we are so lucky to have people like that. So, guys, if you can hear me, or and even if you can, if you listen to it later, if you can donate a couple bucks to Susanna, that'd be nice. If you can't, just you know, let's at least push the good vibes her way and work really hard to see that the money follows. And let's not kid ourselves; it's going to take such hard work to keep people like Susanna. And I've got some local people I want to mention, like Kelly Brown from District 5, I want to say, and Kara Stewart from District 3, both running for City Council in Costa Mesa, California. And I've already chatted about Ada Rosenio in District 67. And I tell you who else has been really kind. It's been Jesse Lopez, District 68. She's in a tough race. And after having, reviewed her platform and her history and all this, she's one of those people that's usually right. I mean, her heart is always in the right direction. She's inquisitive enough to know what questions to ask. And I mean, I just, that's going to be a loser in that race. And it's too bad. Jesse's just a fairly young, passionate person who's passionate about doing good and right. And, we can't have enough of those people. So all I can ask is that in District 68 is that everybody kind of keep their mind open and, like I say, may the better Democrat win. That's about all I can, beyond having my favorites, my endorsees, it's just crucial that any given Democrat get in there. Sure, I'd love to be the Democrat that aligns with me philosophically in every way, but that's okay. If I can't get that, just have the D on your door, and then we can work from there. And doesn't that show a little bit of long-term vision that you generally don't hear coming out of the White House? The White House between the reflection pond and the arc and the ballroom. I can't believe the Trump Kennedy Center didn't. I can't believe that name didn't take off. Who would not accept a chance to go hit the opera at the Trump Kennedy Center, huh? And to associate Trump with anything fine is kind of a joke in and of itself. But going to see, I don't know, El Figaro, and you might want to go see El Figaro at the La Scala, at the Met, someplace. But someplace like the Trump Kennedy Center, you might not rush to. I just thought I'd mention that in passing. But how about this Raul Castro thing? 1996, and this is 2026. That should be right around 30 years, right? And God only knows what happened back then, but it's an unnecessary show of force. And that was always the strength of the U.S. People believed that we were so fierce that it wasn't necessary to show it, that people just kind of knew it and kind of acted accordingly. And now Trump's exposed that for what it is. He's depleted our supply of missiles, and we ain't got no drones. Or, not like, Iran and half the Ukraine and half those guys. Uh, and the point of that is that when Ukraine can take down Russia through the use of drones, that asymmetry, that David Goliath model, you got to stand up and take notice. All of a sudden, before David might have beaten Goliath, but he wasn't going to beat him very much. He might beat him 1 out of 10 if he was lucky. But Ukraine's going to change that. Now, David's got the tools to penetrate. David's got the tools to counterpunch. David's got the opportunity to hit you from an altitude or that you won't even know what happens. Just gets under the radar. You won't know. So when you have that sort of asymmetrical warfare, usually there's like a clear winner and a clear loser. I don't know if that necessarily held true in the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. I don't recall those suicide bombings, going particularly well, but I could be wrong. Matter of fact, I think those suicide bombings in Israel when they first started, like on the public buses, I think that's when Israel instituted the policy of, you do this, we knock your family's house down, and they lose everything. Hopefully that would discourage, but again, it's a weird deal of it's run by a gang, and it would be wrong to think of Hamas as anything but a gang or an armed gang who have always used the Palestinians as pawns, as Middle Eastern pawns, and to think that the Palestinians are this vitally important group to these people, it just doesn't float, not anymore. So let's see, where are we today, guys? Geez, is it already 12:47? Did I almost go for the first hour already? Guys, like I said, in that case, you're due to give us a call, 949-629-3820. And, let us know what you think. Am I seeing this correctly? I mean, I like to think I am. I like to think I can look at the evidence and see what conclusion I come. But this is just beyond weird. Trust me, it's beyond weird. Let's see here. Oh no, wouldn't this be sweet? Wouldn't it be nice if Trump has produced in the primary, through his primary endorsements, general election candidates that are toxic? And I'm sure everybody's looking at the Ken Paxton deal in Texas. Paxton and Trump are two of a kind. They are both really aggressive when it comes to the money department, and they both get sued regularly about the money department. So it was kind of a bit much hoping that Trump would support the more reasonable guy. And, like I said, when's the last time Trump has, done anything that vaguely resembled reasonable? Yeah, I thought it was a while back too. Matter of fact, what has he done that was reasonable? I swear I'm at a loss. Has Trump done anything reasonable? Gosh, I honestly don't think so. And did anybody catch that commencement address to the Coast Guard? He's so far gone mentally. I can't believe on the one hand we're talking about him as a human being, and he acts like a vegetable, like somebody that's just incapable of learning. And I guess when you're the smartest person in the room, you don't need to learn very much, do you? You're in a position to teach, so much. Matter of fact, I'm really surprised Trump hasn't instructed the generals on how to conduct this war. I'm sure he knows exactly how to do this. And I'm equally sure that every Joint Chief would hang on his every word. Oh, Nobody does sarcasm like the British, but I try. Okay. And how about this? How about the protests in Bolivia? That's kind of close to Venezuela, isn't it? A little further south, but you guys get the idea. I mean, where in the world is calm and peaceful? Yeah, you might argue Canada, but things are a little testy up there. I mean, Trump has destabilized every pillar of decency that the world order relied on. To realize that the U.S. has no allies in the world because of one guy. One like this before, and his intent on showing what a big boy he is. He was going to he was going to force people to do things. He was going to knock them in the head and that you have to do this or else. And like I say, you guys were all warned what kind of guy he was. You were warned how unsuitable he was. And, you had the opportunity between a decent person and a monster, and you picked the monster. It's like the choice between I know it all but know nothing frat boy or the smartest girl in the class. And you guys picked the idiot. Now, of course, basic question, why did you pick the idiot? And you could say, well, I believed his lies. And that reminds me of the woman that was on CNN not long ago. Oh, it's cracking me up so much. And they interviewed her. And I think the first question was, if you had anything to say to Donald Trump, what would you say? And it was something about, you're a worthless POS, something like that. And of course, you kind of crack up when you hear that. And then the reporter asked her, well, how many times did you vote for him? And she goes, 3 times. Can you believe it? I must be an idiot. And, I wouldn't necessarily call her an idiot. I might call her gullible. I might call her a few other things, but I wouldn't necessarily call her an idiot. But I guarantee she's not alone. If you guys, I would like to think that, maybe I'm wrong. He campaigned on a campaign of retribution. And you guys said, okay. You voted for it. Of course, you took everyone in the country down with you, but you voted for it. So, sometimes when I think about slaves only being counted, each slave being counted as 3/5 of a person for the census, I'm kind of reminded that, you can have two sides of the argument, but usually they're unequal, and one side's going to be the clear winner. And I would encourage, if there's any parent listening out here, try to get your kids into like a debate club or group at school. It'll serve your child well in terms of just the critical thinking skills. Now, if you want to, if I had a child, I would probably try to get them into debate class and maybe golf or tennis, and then sailing just to round it out. But yeah, I mean, what kind of parents can afford to give their kids that kind of a life anymore? It used to be easy when things were, $10, $20, but now they're hundreds or thousands. I mean, cars aren't cars anymore; they're computers with wheels. And you know how when your computer goes and you take it to the computer guy, and he says, well, it's probably cost you like $500 for a new hard drive, but you can just go get a brand new laptop for $899. So, and when your car's like that, what do you do? At some point, you might just happen to replace it. And I don't want to. And how do you do that when the Fed is going to be forced to raise interest rates? I mean, I think they said the 30-year hit 5.19 yesterday. And that was like the first time it pushed over 5% in a while. And if people want a 5% yield to buy our bonds now, what do they want in the future? What are we obligated to pay in the way of interest to entice people to buy our bonds? And you got to get really nervous because over in Japan, what used to be an American only yield is now creeping up on the Japanese. And you can rest assured when the Japanese can make more money holding their bonds than our bonds, you know what they're going to do? The only thing they can do, they're going to sell 11 daylights out of our bonds and buy theirs. And I can't imagine what kind of shockwave that sets off. I'd like to think the Japanese would do it in stages. But this bond market, only because people don't understand it so well. Had a little technical difficulty. I have no idea what happened. But we are back with you at 1 o'clock on this really nice Thursday afternoon, May 21st, 2026. And, let's see what else I want. Other points to. I got to love this. This was a front page headline from the New York Times. Trump's deal with Trump tests constitutional limits. $1.8 billion fund uses a mechanism that's long seemed as ripe for abuse. And the money is coming from an account that held judgments that people were forced to pay in litigation with the U.S. So if somebody got fined $100,000 or $1 million, whatever it is, it would go to this fund. and I think it's pretty much never been touched, right? Yeah, it's never been touched. But guess what? Somebody out there is going to find a way to steal it. And how do they steal $1.8 billion from the taxpayers? Well, they get it to fund a anti-weaponization fund, when in reality they were the ones that were weaponizing. And I say, look at the January 6 videos. If I'm wrong, tell me. If you can spot the fakes where where Hollywood did its thing, please God, let me know. I mean, I'm fully capable of changing my mind if there's evidence to support the conclusion. But you guys have been just a little, a little lacking in the evidence department. But anyway, Trump's deal with Trump. That just, what do you say? Yeah, what do you say? And of course, Barney Frank died. And he was an old gay congressman when, being a gay congressman was, not fashionable at all. And, the guy actually had, a lot of abuse in his life for being gay. And, I was never, I appreciated Barney's politics. I never liked his personal demeanor. But there's no doubt whose side he was on. I say this like a commie. He was on the side of the people, but he was. And sometimes people can be so empathetic that they feel your position, they feel your pain so badly that they're actually able to be helpful. And I had always thought of Barney Frank in that category, just a guy from Massachusetts. Just kind of a decent guy from Massachusetts. Might have a little different lifestyle than you or I, but again, isn't that what America is about? Is having the freedom to choose? And let me ask you this: when you think about having the freedom to choose anything, who do you think wants more rights to choose, and who do you think wants to restrict the right to choose? Well, you would have to assume that Trump wants the right to restrict, and that's why he intimidates. That's why he steals voter rolls. That's why he lies. And don't forget, we hadn't even talked about those innocent people that got killed in Minnesota, or the 175 girls at the school in Iran, or all the other just indiscriminate destruction. When Trump made that statement about the only thing holding him back are his own morals. Well, in that case, there ain't nothing holding him back, is there? When Biden said that he had the morals of an alley cat, I'm like, you go, Joe. That sounds pretty accurate to me. Must be talking a lot to be this thirsty. So anyway, what other atrocities can we talk about today? I want to talk about guys like Thomas Massey and who's the guy that Trump primaried? It was in Kentucky. That was Thomas Massey. Anyway, Massey was, an advocate of the Epstein victims. And, I got the impression that, while he was a little misguided, that there might have been enough center tendencies to work with him. But he had no problem being independent from Trump. And if you think about it, that was how the founders wanted it. If they wanted to combine the legislature and the executive, they would have. But they didn't do that. They had three branches and they put them down in order. I can't understand what's not coming across there. Excuse me. Oh, and doesn't this make me sad? my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina. And of course, we were Fort Sumter, the shot heard around the world. The Civil War, also known as the War of Northern Aggression. All kind of things like that when you grow up in Charleston. Uh, but they're moving to eliminate Jim Clyburn's seat in the House of Representatives. I think Clyburn's been there like 30 years, 40 years. Uh, but they did this. I mean, seconds after the Supreme Court made that Louisiana decision that let the racially gerrymandered voting district map stand. And when states move to do this, when states take actions to restrict voting rights and choices, I just think that's particularly unhelpful. And now, worse than that, you've forced a lot of Southerners into taking a position that, I'm not going to do business with you guys, or I'm not going to go to the University of Alabama since you guys redistricted, and pretty much the same for all you guys in Tennessee redistrict. Thanks, I'll play at Michigan. How about UCLA? We've got a few schools out here that can use you. Of course, you can't go to Texas, but you can go to the Maryland, New York, several schools. I mean, believe me, there are other places to play than the University of Alabama or the University of Georgia. You may not think so from a football standpoint, but guys, sometimes you have to stand up in life and take one. Just take one because you're not going to be mowed over like this. If someone wants to beat you, then they'll have to try really hard. But it's doesn't that just show racism right off the bat? Doesn't that just show how really wrong and tone deaf the Supreme Court decision was? I think so. I can't imagine anybody else not seeing it that way. But what do I know? No, I tell you what I do know. I do know we better plug in and get a little power going here before we fade to black. I don't know if you guys know this, but I get this charger thing, and it's from a company called Charge, SHARGE, and they were on the net. I was looking for a battery or power bank that would let me do this broadcast for hours without and still have plenty of reserve and recharge quickly. So I found this thing from Charge, and it's like a high-speed thing. They gave a free high-speed cable with it. And it was like half price. I got it for like $109 instead of $225, whatever it was. And like I said, it comes with its own high-speed cable that and like I said, when just my laptop is running on this thing, it will put out the full 65 watts like the charger. Of course, the more things you put into the charger, the more the charger gets diluted. But this is a really good thing. Like I said, it'll last me, I guarantee, every bit of 8 hours. So I just thought I'd kind of pass that unsolicited consumer tip on to you. And let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, there's another editorial there in the Times that was worth mentioning. And it was, do any Republicans still put America first? And the answer is no, they put Trump first. And, you don't, and you can take that one to the bank, folks. Do we have any Republicans standing up? And generally, no. And you got to wonder, when someone exhibits racist tendencies over and over and over again, at what point do you conclude they're racist? I think 2 or 3 times is kind of enough. And, there's always been this white resentment against blacks. And, I guess on some level. It's insecurity, it's displacement, it's lots of things. But usually when we have problems like that, guys, usually the better way to approach is to look inside, because if you start looking for faults with other people, there's no shortage. So you just thought I kind of trust you with that one. And I want to kind of move on to the Financial Times for a little bit. You know how much I like those guys, and what I wanted to point out about today's Financial Times was that there was nothing on the front page about the states. Absolutely nothing. There was now I tell you what was interesting was the headline. And keep in mind, I didn't see any of this or not much of this in the Times, in the New York Times. Brussels, the EU considers Angela Merkel from France, or Mario Draghi from Italy to lead talks with Putin over Ukraine. And guys, does that tell you how much we've been minimized on the world stage by Donald Trump? We have been so minimized on the world stage that you have the EU being a peace broker and not the U.S. Again, Trump has relinquished global leadership. And into that vacuum, China is charging head on with full steam. Russia's trying to. They're obviously handicapped. But we're not the good guys anymore. And what's worse is there is evidence to support the conclusion that we're not the good guys anymore. I'm not big, I don't have many feelings about Maduro and Venezuela one way or the other. But I do have a problem with kind of swooping in the middle of the night and cause a bunch of damage and kidnapping the president and his wife. Yeah, I kind of have a problem with that. I think there's kind of like legal channels. If there aren't, then you got to wait it out. You can't just break the rules because you're unhappy or because you don't want to wait. And if you break the rules because you're unhappy or you break the rules because you don't want to wait, I think that if you looked up childish in the dictionary, you might just get that. And does anybody not believe we have an idiot with a child's temperament in the White House? Of course not. Everyone knows we have an idiot with a child's temperament in the White House. And how do we know this? Because we have seen the evidence to support the conclusion. We're not just making this up. We have facts and we have evidence. Now, if you don't want to believe it, well, you're perfectly free to believe the earth is flat too. But that doesn't exactly put you in in a very illustrious group of thinkers. Just another one of those food for thought things on this really nice stuff. I tell you, it's so nice that's almost hard to keep concentrating. And this was really great. And this was not on the front page. The oil shock that is coming to America. So, we hadn't really had it yet. Wait till there's some sort of physical disruption in delivery, like big time. And when you have that sort of physical disruption in supplying a commodity that's vital, it kind of becomes a security challenge. Do you have enough energy to mobilize your armed forces? And we got big armed forces. Of course, we have big armed forces that can be taken out by really small drones, but we've got a really big, major military force, and it needs gas and oil to move around. And then you have this other, I guess, supply problem, and it's called the refinery conundrum. And I forgot what the exact percentages are, but I think it was out of a barrel of oil, you can get, I think, 19 or 20 gallons of gasoline, or maybe 4 to 5 gallons of jet fuel. And of course, jet fuel is much more expensive and much more lucrative with less work. So of course, the refinery wants to make more jet fuel, and the population wants them to make more consumer fuel. Uh, and somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose, and let's just hope the American citizen doesn't take it in shorts again. And guys, give us a call at 949-629-3820. We're genuinely curious what sorts of measures people are taking to economize these days. Is there a little something you use to save an extra $5 and $10 a week, or maybe save a couple of gallons of gas? Do you, I don't know, maybe take the bus to work instead of driving? I've always been an advocate of that. If you lived like reasonably close for mass transit, it's just prohibitive to drive in areas like that. In this, and again, a lot can go wrong in the subway, and a lot can go wrong on the freeway. But as a general proposition, I find it safer being off the road than on the road. I know when I was doing some stuff with some guys at Cal State Long Beach, I would take the bus up there. It was 75 cents each way, and it was like 20 miles. So for the low price of $1.50, I was able to go to and from Long Beach, which saved me like maybe $10 or $15 in gasoline and another $15 in parking and the stress of dealing with it all. So I'm more than happy to use mass transit. Wish there was more of it. And if we had a lot of it, maybe we wouldn't consume so much oil. And doesn't that make the whole deal about moving away from green energy to big beautiful coal? What kind of backwards thinking is that? I mean, you guys, you're ignoring the scientific evidence, and apparently isn't convenient for you to believe it. But the truth hurts, and that's what it is. We are guilty of causing global warming. We've been suffering the consequences for a long time. But whenever anything is inconvenient for the Republicans, it becomes, what could that be? What's that 4-letter word? I think that's called a hoax. Like something false, like something you can't believe in. And at that point, it's Republicans' marketing job. And if they repeat it long enough, people will believe it, and that's what they do. But isn't that the most insidious sort of representative? The person just kind of weasels his way in there. And I'm not going to... I will only point fingers at the orange-tinged subhuman being occupying the White House. You've got to be humble enough to have some idea what you don't know. And I'm so curious what Trump doesn't know about. So I'm pretty convinced he could take over for any one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I know if Elon ever gets sick and Tesla and SpaceX need a new CEO, I think Trump could be an instant fit. Don't you guys? So yeah, it's like you guys praise him on one hand because you're afraid to tell he's a senile old man, which he is. I said, listen to the Coast Guard commencement speech. Tell me that came from a rational human being. I mean, I don't even know if you can lie about that and say that. Even though that Stephen Chung guy, Trump's spokesperson can. I get it. That guy's just incredibly foul-mouthed. I mean, if there were two ways to say something, and one way was an obscene way, and the other way wasn't, I guarantee you'd pick the obscene way every time. And the reason is, he's in Trump's White House. Why? Because it's showtime. And sometimes the boss needs some protecting, and it's showtime. Time to go on, Stephen. What outrage are you gonna, wrongfully pin on the Democrats? And that's another thing. Whenever you see a Republican platform or set of positions, look into them and read them. See if that makes sense to you. I mean, I've seen some, excuse me, some proposals that I would follow it through. I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. And I'm going to tell you something. If you guys in District 30 elect Susanna Brown, you won't have to worry about that. You'll be electing somebody that thrives on data, that analyzes data, that can make a decision based on the data. I mean, this is a really good skill to have. And if she were to take that skill to Sacramento, I think Sacramento would be better off, and Cambridge District 30 would. So just a little plug again for Susanna Brown, whom I've just got tons of respect for. Mom raising two kids. She's a data analyst, and her positions are all just so reasonable. I mean, it doesn't. Or I'll put this another way: shouldn't schools have stable, adequate funding? Not just stable, but stable, adequate funding. I mean, the kids always seem to get shortchanged, and they're the ones that we owe everything to. And the reason we owe everything to the kids is they didn't really ask to come here. They're not like asked to be born. We brought them into the world. We've got a responsibility. Now, I'm going to contrast that with Trump's wanting to leave Iran in ruins and, kind of like deny responsibility. You can't just do that. When you make a mess, you're responsible for it. And, but yeah, so with all this in mind, 2026 is just downright crucial. Now I want to get into something else real quick. And I believe that Xi is starting to warn Trump a little more obviously about Taiwan. And, Xi, as it stands now, Stephen Miller and Trump advocate the law of the jungle. The strongest guy can, whoever can take it can take it. And you would have to think that at some point that, that kind of runs out of steam. And, I think that Xi's words about Taiwan were something like, if it's handled improperly, we can have war, something like that. But if we can work this out, then maybe we can avoid it. Guys, that's not the deal we made with Taiwan. And Trump is fond of blowing up deals for whatever reason. He just blows them up. It's like he can't handle the accomplishments of others. And it makes for just a disastrous term in office. And it's just, and it's an existential crisis for the country. I mean, does anybody really doubt that if Trump's guys wins in 2026 and 2028, does anybody actually believe that we had just lost the country? No, I think everybody agrees that that's pretty much how it's going to happen. Again, it's about 1:23 or so. So we're going to ask you to give us a call, 949-629-3820. And, what do you think about the war and Trump in general? See, our position, or my position is, he's just a consummate liar and con man. And I would go to prove that by using past history. And I have no idea what a defense would do. Oh, and another thing, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see two of the best law school moot court teams, trial court teams, reenact a January 6th trial, or have a January 6th trial of Trump, just in academia. And let's hear both sides lay out the story. Let's look at the evidence. Let's see who did it. And guys, if the evidence is overwhelming, and the attempts to get you to forget about it or ignore it are just downright offensive. And they're not only offensive to me, but they're ruinous to the country. Whenever we're blinded to the facts, whenever the facts are what somebody says they are and not what is objectively proven, that's incredibly dangerous. And like I said, Trump's just an idiot. He knows I think he kind of knows what he's doing, but I think his tendencies to be tyrannical are just, they're always at the front. So I think he always acts with them in control and exercising some degree of control over them. But guys, I say just work hard until until the 2026 election. Vote early. Don't be intimidated, and let's see if we can't take his best shot and hand it right back to him. Because if we can turn it back at 2026, we will have such momentum going into 2028 that it really does make turning the tide a little more likely. I think the Democrats clearly have the momentum and support right now, even though it might not feel like it. I sense this undercurrent of uncertainty, and I sense it from people all around the country. And like I said, the truth of the matter is, nobody feels comfortable anymore. Nobody feels secure anymore. And of course, Trump wants you to. The only way Trump wants you to feel secure is when he provides the security. The only time Trump wants you to feel secure is when he provides the security. Is that not rigging the game? Is that not a perfect instance of whoever is being accused of rigging the game is actually doing the rigging of the game? We both know Trump is rigging, starting with the redistricting. And there's no problem fighting fairly. So you leave the redistricting as it is until the next census. It's how it's always been done, and we dealt with it willingly. All of a sudden, that's not good enough. And the reason that's not good enough is Trump's not just looking at losing an election. He's looking at losing his freedom and his money. So I guarantee you there will be criminal charges filed before he gets out of office. And, it couldn't happen to a better guy, couldn't it? It's always nice when the people that should get punished do get punished. And I do think you'll have more than one person popping an adult beverage to celebrate that one. Yeah, I mean, don't forget, in 2024, he was literally running to stay out of jail. And, what lie wouldn't you tell to stay out of jail? I think I might admit to being a one-armed, legless lesbian if I kept me out of jail, And can you imagine what he would do? But anyway, like I said, it's I'm dying to hear what's going on in the rest of the country. I was kind of disappointed. The truth was, I was really disappointed when Thomas Massie in Kentucky lost. I really thought that he had enough supporters who liked his independence that he would be reelected. But apparently the kiss of death from Trump is enough to do him in the primary. And like I said, we can only hope that in the general, that was Grindhill or something about it, that his Trump's in Dorsey in Tennessee, in Kentucky, we can only hope he just loses massively as being too radical for middle of the road Kentuckians. And it's funny, I'm sure your middle of the road Kentuckian is probably a pretty conservative person in California. And that begs another question. Are the United States too big to continue as it is? Do we have such a poor mixture of big states and small states and different interests? And different commercial considerations, different ecological considerations. Are we too big to be a country? And I think that with California being the sixth or seventh largest economy in the world, then California could clearly stand on its own. And in this particular political climate, I would not have a problem with Gavin Newsom being the president of the state of California, or Katie Ford, or just about anybody. And guys, I want to say a quick word about the Xavier Becerra, Katie Porter race for governor, or at least for the Democratic nomination. Becerra's been around. He's got the government experience. He's probably, he will probably be more effective in the position than Katie Porter. However, I like Katie Porter. I think she's, if there was I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but Katie Porter, she ain't running as just another pretty face. Katie Porter kicks ass and takes names. And if you can't keep up, oh well. It's kind of thing. I may not like her delivery. I may not like her manner. I certainly might not like working for her. But goddamn, I think she'd be an effective governor. She's another one of these just driven people. And, sometimes the driven or the drive and the intensity get a little overwhelming. And, every now and then you say something you shouldn't say. But in her defense, when you function at such a high level, you come expect the team to be at your level, and that doesn't always happen. And when that doesn't always happen, particularly in a public setting, you might say something you wouldn't ordinarily say. So, I kind of cut Katie Porter a lot of slack in that area. But again, it's another one of those situations where Democrats just have an abundance of riches and candidates. I mean, nobody would do a really lousy job. No Democrat would do a really lousy job, I don't think. At least not between Becerra and Porter. I don't, Steyer, I'm really tired of billionaires buying offices. And, Steve Hilton, thanks, but, I think you're a little late to the party. And who else? Steve Hilton. Oh, and let's say a little word about Chad Bianco on the Republican side. Guys, he broke into the Riverside County office and he stole the voter rolls. And he claimed, well, that was within the scope of his employment as a police chief of Riverside County. Oh, and because I was within my duty, I want you to pick up my attorney's fees for being arrested for taking these voter records. And you know what the city council of Riverside said, don't you? No way, Jose. Or Jose B. No way, Jose. We ain't paying for your legal fees, you dumbass. Always a shock. But, and how does this guy have any credibility? He's the sheriff and he stole the voter records. I mean, is that not voting for a criminal to be the sheriff? That's what it seems like to me. And you can see where the playbook comes from. And from the top down, right? But yeah, I was doing this because it was within the scope of my duty, and I think you ought to pay my legal fees. Well, we don't, what is it? Homie, don't play that. That's just tough, Chad. Or that's tough, Chad, you know what I mean? And the Republican, and for some reason that appeals to people. I wish I understood. My brother tries to explain to me that people will accept wrong and strong before they'll accept right and weak. And you got to believe it's true. Otherwise, autocrats would not have any power at all. But, when you've got I also was thinking about this. I work pretty hard these days. I get up at 4 a.m, go to the gym at 5, leave the gym at 6. I have coffee from 6:30 till 7:30 or 8. Look at the New York Times and Financial Times for headlines till about 10. Uh, get something to eat and go set up for the broadcast at 12. Broadcast from 12 to 2. Break down about 2:30, and 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 at that point it's been almost a 12-hour day, like a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. kind of day. Uh, so I don't know why I brought that up, but time is so. You have to have time to think through problems. And like I said, there's not a whole lot of free time in my day to think through problems anymore. To really look at the news from around the world as in depth as I would like to. And there are people with families and kids that work 9 to 5, whatever it is, and they just don't have the time or the energy or the curiosity to want to keep up. So it's awfully easy to take an uninformed position. But guys, that's not what the United States is about. Don't we always want to do the best we can do? And I want to run a little side theory by you. That's an extraordinarily positive position, right? You would just hope everybody wants to do right and wants to do good. And I have this theory. Actually, I've got two theories, but I'll just kind of go into one now. And one is the sun theory. And the sun theory is pretty common. And it's just the opposite of that seasonal affective disorder stuff. The sun theory says that in the American West, where places like Taos or even California, where you can have maybe 300 days of sunshine a year, that amount of sunshine and daylight and all that just makes people happy, as opposed to like a gloomy, place in the interior somewhere. And I've got cousins in Gary, Indiana, and Michigan, and all those places. And the truth of the matter is, I know I couldn't live there, and I don't think they could live here. We're all kind of brought up, shaped differently by our environments, and if you grow up, in a nice place where it's always sunshine and you're playing outside with your parents, or maybe get a little older and go outside and play baseball with your friends, that just generally makes for really a much happier child. And only because of the San Diego mosque shooting do I mention that. This kid's consumed information online about hate. There's there is counter programming, but they weren't into the counter programming. That's what they wanted. And they found sources that would confirm their beliefs, that would tell them what they want to hear, that would tell them that Muslims are bad, and that Haitians eat dogs, and all this stuff. But when people are left alone, I think that there's a general tendency to get along. I think when you start trying to force round pegs into square holes, or square pegs into round holes, I think that's when it gets a little difficult. And I was thinking in a future not too long from now, and where you might get a message like, you are rejected, you do not conform to standards, whatever it would be. And I found that I had that I had that happen sending an email, right? I couldn't send it. I'm like, why? Well, did not conform to standards. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? So just ponder that for a while. What if you wanted to, I don't know, order a hamburger with extra mayonnaise instead of extra mustard, or extra mustard instead of extra mayonnaise, whatever you like. And the waiter or waitress or iPad says, we reject your order as not conforming to standards. that can happen really easily in a lot of different ways. And don't I don't think we're super far off from that. I would say what 20 to 40 years, a generation or two. The way things are changing now, and I keep talking about AI. I don't keep talking about, but I mention AI a lot, and we all know that AI stands for artificial intelligence. But I think we've come up with another use for it, and I use it to describe the orange tinged subhuman being in the White House as yeah, as just being a complete doof. I just don't know what else to say. He's an orange tinged moron. Uh, I need to kind of get off of that, but yes, this is just such a weird time in history and in America. But did you know that you can you might not be able to count on much. You might not be able to count on the president of the United States. You might not be able to count on the vice president of the United States. You certainly couldn't count on the speaker of the House of the United States. But you know that you can always count on Abby Kaufman, your somewhat semi-savvy, politically minded host at democracyradionetwork.com. And let's say give us a call, 949-629-3820, and share your thoughts. Don't let me be the only one pontificating. I would hate to think I'm actually right. So it's always nice to have people come in and give their thoughts. And let's see, when you visit that old democracyradionetwork.com homepage, that's where you'll see our phone-in number, and that's where you will see the live stream link. And what else? What else might you just so happen to notice? Well, I thought you'd never ask. You just might happen to notice the PayPal donate button. And I always say, I don't want you to hit it. I don't want you to click it. I don't want you, you don't have to mess with it. You don't have to click, you don't have to tap, you don't have to, but I'm telling you what I will ask you to do is, like I say, not tap, not click, not whatever it is, but I want you to smash the living daylights out of it and make a really, really healthy donation so old Ab can get some car work done and, make Ab a happy and mobile guy. So anyway, I want to thought I'd run that one by one last time before we get ready to go here. I think we're closing in on like 1:45, and my voice is actually starting to go a little sooner than usual. I can usually make it till 2:00, and we'll try a little bit longer to see what we have in the tank. But I can feel the throat getting a little scratchy, starting to dry out, and I'm almost out of liquid refreshments. And I gotta tell you, I'm not supposed to have any adult beverages, but guys, on a day like this, it's awfully hard not to have a beer. So if anybody stumbles by and notices my car at the Shamrock, I'm just having water and a salad. How about that? I'm not going to the closest Irish bar for a drink and fries. I'm going there for a salad and water. I mean, I can't even do that with a straight face. Much less I want $1.8 billion to pay the rioters. I can't imagine doing that with a straight face. But again, what do I know? I've never been arrested or any of that stuff, so I don't know. But let me hit on this before we go. The American judiciary is still is really fierce. If you get convicted of a crime, more than likely, you just get taken right back into custody. You may never see the light of day again from that courtroom. You don't get time out to appeal. You don't get time out to 2 weeks to get affairs in order. They take your ass away right then and there. Now, of course, it helps if you're poor and black or minority and all that, but yeah, just think about that. No 2 weeks to appeal, no week to get your affairs in order, unless you're like a white collar criminal, in which case they'll give you a couple months to wind affairs down, all that. But and then after they're giving you a little bit of time to wind your affairs down, you'll probably go into a really nice federal prison. I can tell you, I've had a few friends go to federal prison, and it's a prison. You can't go home and all that stuff. But on the other hand, it's got its benefits. Your roommate's probably also a white collar criminal, as opposed to someone who may look at you as being I don't know, a nice piece of aged beef. I'm sure that's how those guys look at it. It's just kind of another 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 new behind to violate. How else do they keep track? I don't know. But in college we had to go visit this prison for some reason. It was must have been a criminal justice course or something. And and it's a men's prison, and it's the main prison in Columbia, South Carolina, on the outskirts where it ever was. And this place had been around since like 1860. No windows. I mean, just you can't imagine keeping human beings in there. So anyway, we're in there, and there's some inmates talking to us, and I don't know what. There's this one inmate or one person in there that looked feminine, looked like female. So I didn't really think about it. So then I'm like, guys, what's with that woman in there? Of course, they laugh. They're like, you dumbass. That's not a woman. She's been conditioned to be that way, if you know what we mean. Like, if you don't act feminine, you may not act at all. So, so it's amazing what people do to adapt in those places. I'd love to see those things rethought too. I think there's, of course, not everyone is savable, but I do think there are probably enough people in there that could be productive. And I don't know how you get around that 13th Amendment involuntary slavery thing with making the inmates work. But they do seem to have some people in there do seem to have skills, and they can be used to train others. Now, can you trust those people to be around hammers and heavy equipment and not kill people? Well, that's always the rub, isn't it? How do you know if a bunch of inmates are going to turn violent with the tools they have? You just never know. And then all of a sudden, what happens? Comes the day of the revolution. These guys don't want to make your bicycles anymore. So, guys, I'm sorry. I'm clearly losing my voice at this point. I'm going to have to wrap it up and say adios and aloha. And as always, I appreciate everyone tuning in, watching, listening, replaying. And guys, as much as I hate to say Roger Wilco over and out, I won't say Roger Wilco over and out.